Thank you for joining us for this special conversation surrounding Juneteenth. I'm Faith Jesse. For the first time, New York is recognizing Juneteenth as an official state holiday. So how did this holiday come about? Members of Congress made this video explaining its origin. To discuss the significance of Juneteenth, Dr. Tamika Robinson from Hofstra University joins me now. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Robinson.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so now that everybody saw the video, got a little background on the history of Juneteenth, I want to start off the conversation with a question about the significance of Juneteenth being recognized as an official state holiday. What does this mean for the folks of New York and the people right here on Long Island?
So first of all, it is important to recognize that we already celebrate Independence Day on July 4th. However, many people weren't actually free at that point. So recognizing the history of how long it took and when other people discovered their freedom is significant, and it is a time for us to reflect and to really think about what our history actually is and what it actually states. So I really think of this moment as a time of learning and a time of education.
Speaking of learning and education, this question is specifically for you because you are an educator. Although Juneteenth has been celebrated for more than 150 years, this part of American history is not taught in all schools. I actually wasn't even taught about it myself when I was in grade school. Some have called on educators to rethink how they are teaching American history to make it more inclusive to the history of non-white Americans. Dr. Robinson, what goes into creating these lesson plans on American history here on Long Island?
So the first thing is to think about the age group that you're talking about, because it's always important to have age appropriate lessons, even if you're talking about history. But it's also important to think about what is missing from the textbooks, what actually happened in our history, and how can we give a holistic understanding of everything that occurred. This does not mean that people hate America by talking about what actually happened within historical context, but rather it is providing a very clear picture of everything that went into our history, even the dark parts that are there.
And I like that you hit on that because it's not all glitz and glam for many communities, especially the Black community here in America. Dr. Robinson, I have one more question for you. We saw a lot of calls for social justice last summer. People of all different skin tones, backgrounds, non-Americans, Americans coming together, calling for change. Do you think that this big movement, if you will, had any significance or impact on New York naming Juneteenth as an official holiday for the first time?
I absolutely do. I think that it started to have more people involved in the conversation. Calls for making Juneteenth a federal holiday have been going on for decades. But as we've even seen, that Congress passed it unanimously, and though it didn't pass unanimously through the Senate, there was still overwhelming support for it because people are starting to have some of those tough conversations, and we're starting to have a reckoning with some of those parts of our history, including our treatment of people, of descendants of enslaved people, and other groups across the country. We're starting to have some of those difficult conversations. And in having those conversations and getting through some of that messiness of it, we're starting to recognize that there are ways that we can really move forward collectively and figure out ways to really honor our history and also to learn all of our history in all of its good and bad parts.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Robinson, I want to thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us about an important part of U.S. history. This was just a very brief conversation, so those of you all who are watching and want to learn more, we have the internet. Make sure you're looking at reputable sources and do a little bit of digging there. And for those of you all watching, here's a look at some events happening this weekend to commemorate Juneteenth. The first Juneteenth Food Festival happens Saturday from 3 to 10 p.m. at Cow Meadow Park in Freeport. Over in Elmont, the Juneteenth celebration will take place on Saturday from 4 to 9 p.m. at the Village Ave parking lot. And if you don't want to go out, you want to stay inside, there is actually an online Juneteenth celebration being held by the Uniondale Public Library, also taking place on Saturday. To register for that event, head to uniondalelibrary.org. I'm Faith Jesse, and thank you so much for watching.